it separates him from Baudrillard, who we'll look at in a minute. So, oh, I can't remember this. Oh yeah, okay, so this is his political theory. Basically, if you think if that was his aesthetic theory, you should just sort of tournament. There's other practices. He doesn't just use the tournament, by the way. He uses things like, there's one called dérive. I don't know if it's dérivé, he can't speak French, where he goes like on a drift with a few of his friends, and he's trying to avoid set ways of walking around the city or experiencing everyday life. So he'll just go and find different things. This type of thing of getting out of rigidified, spectacular space. And there's another one which I quite like, which is possible rendezvous, which is when you arrange some sort of meeting between two people, and they've probably never met before, and they don't know each other's names. You said meet at this place at this time, and so you go to somewhere and you know you're going to meet someone, you don't know who it is, so you end up going to talk to everyone, and you might meet them, you might not. You're just trying to meet people in a different way to normal relations. You're adding them as a friend on Facebook, or meeting at some sort of Christmas party at work, or all these demoralising things you've got to deal with in everyday life. So this is how he kind of applies this to politics. So this is a point. He's a Marxian philosopher, but essentially his politics are anarchist. He's not proposing a new type of theory. He kind of proposes workers' councils later, but he's quite vague about it. So now in terms of the spectacle, he just wants to mess things up a bit. So, as capitalism's ever-intensifying imposition of alienation at all levels makes it increasingly hard for workers to recognise and name their own impoverishment, putting them in the position of having to reject that impoverishment in its totality or not at all, revolutionary organisation has to learn that it can no longer combat alienation by alienated forms of struggle. Revolutionary theory is now the enemy of all revolutionary ideology, and it knows it. He loves these lines. So, for Debord, he's not a socialist in the sense that he doesn't want to create some sort of new set dogma which uses the, say, like the a more traditional type of Marxism, which would, in creating a socialist state, would keep the same economic structure which still separates people from each other, still keeps spectacular relations, but makes the proletariat instead of the bourgeois in control of it in some way, and kind of, I don't know, incorporating the bourgeois into the proletariat. So he's not interested in that. He wants to, in some way, think outside completely the way that the economy works, the way spectacular relations work. He doesn't want any part of it. He's disgusted by it. And this is why, for now, instead of proposing much of an alternative theory, he does propose workers' councils at the end of the book, which is the way that things are run by, like Soviets, but not the Soviet Union. It's very difficult. So, but it's very difficult for him anyway. I don't know. But anyway, he's just trying to change and alter political relations, and this is a book which helped to inspire, helped to incite the May '68 riots. So when he's proposing something which is different to present society, he's quite thin on the ground. But in terms of wanting to change things, he's very, very determined, and he's got the idea, he's got the understanding that there's a contradiction in the way reality and society are organised, and it needs to change, it needs to be resolved. So, I think coming up now is Baudrillard. Yeah, when talking about Debord now, there's always seems to be this man leaning over him. So, and he's very, very different, and the thing is, what I don't give the impression is that he's some sort of later modified superior version of Debord. All I want to show is that he's coming from a different angle. No one came to the Derrida thing, which is a bit hard, but it's post-structuralist. I'll just see how it goes. So, with Debord, when you've got all these social relations, these spectacular relations, I think this is an easiest way to understand it. Debord is saying that people, everybody knows it. People can still see the difference between the essence and the reality. People can still see a separation between the two. For Baudrillard, these two things collapse together. There is no reality, there is no commodity, there is no base, there is no superstructure, there's even no object and subject. There's just what he calls a hyper-reality. There's just something which levels all reality completely. And the terms that he used to describe this hyper-reality are simulacra and simulation. Now, you can understand it by understanding the different terms. A spectacle, you think of a spectacle as someone which sounds like something above you, which is trying to dazzle you, which is trying to affect you in some sort of way. And there's still that essence of the you. There's still the thing in you. With Baudrillard, simulation is a lot more pervasive. Things, it's a lot more subtle. If things are simulated, you don't really know they're simulated, do you? I mean, this is the thing about the spectacle. Sometimes you can think, is this a spectacle or not, because the illusion can be so deep, and sometimes, because you're so immersed in it all the time, you don't even know if it's there. You don't even, you're walking on some, you go into a chip shop and you don't know the tiles beneath you aren't real tiles, it's just a liner, because it's a really good liner. No idea. But the thing is, for Debord, the difference is though there is an actual real lino there. For Baudrillard, there's not a real lino. There's not even any, there's not real tiles. There's not even a question of a lino. There's just what he calls a hyperreality, when the real and what you can think is what's opposite from the real collapse together. I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. Do you remember, if anyone came to the Derrida thing, when Derrida wondered whether language, in the way you think, whether it expresses thoughts or whether it is thought itself. You think of people who speak French, do they think in French or do they have thoughts and they say them in French? Is there a reality, something behind, and there's the thing which is expressed in? So is there a system of objects, and then which kind of bedazzles them, and a reality underneath, or are the two collapsed together, some sort of way? So what Baudrillard says about Marxists, and where Debord gets it wrong, is the Marxian philosopher, so Marx instead of Marxist, does not understand that the passage from the form commodity to the form sign, from the abstraction of the exchange of material products under the law of general equivalence, to the operationalization of all exchanges under the law of the code. It is not simply a matter of commercial prostitution of values, that's Marx, but of the passage, all passage of values to exchange sign value under the hegemony of the code. Which is very hard to kind of understand there, but it's quite simple. Think of, say, I'll try to explain the difference between, say, the object and the subject. For Debord, there's a series of objects, and there's you, there's the I. It's kind of like a Cartesian I, it's just you as a person. For Baudrillard, you're just part of that system. Think of like what the I is. What the I is, what you are, is just created by all these different things. It's just a function. It's just a social function which has been put on you. If there was nobody else around you, if you know other people or other objects or absolutely anything, if it's just you on a desert island, then how do you know yourself as an individual coherent unit? The only way you probably know it is you ever come across the series, the mirror stage, when you say you suddenly look into a mirror or you see somebody else, I don't know, probably who's the person who comes to find Robinson Crusoe, you find the little black fella, I've no idea, but you see somebody else and you get an idea of your sense immediately as a totality in sense of the other. So you're just a signification to yourself. You're not an actual reality, you're a sign in terms of a relation of objects and signs. If it's hard to understand, don't worry, because we're going to go back to Bohr and it's not essential. But for this is just kind of a way to explain it, is in terms of Disneyland. So I like this example because, we think of Baudrillard, you think of Eurotrash and loads of silly films, and when you think of Foucault, you think of the Panopticon, and so Foucault's the Panopticon, for Baudrillard it's Disneyland. So Disneyland is there to conceal the fact that it is the real country, or of real America, which is Disneyland. Just as prisons are there to conceal the fact that it is the social in its entirety, in its banal omnipresence, which is carceral. Disneyland is presented as imaginary to make us believe the rest is real, when in fact America is no longer real, but of the order of the hyperreal in simulation. It is no longer a question of false representation of reality, that would be Debord, but of concealing the fact that the real is no longer real, and thus saving the reality principle.